Good evening. Chief Liggett, could you please give us the invocation this evening?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Please bow our heads. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for this day and thank you for this beautiful season. And as we approach the 20th anniversary of 9/11, please remember all of the sacrifices that have occurred over the last 20 years. And please give your wisdom to all of the council and the leadership team from the city and show us the path that leads to the betterment of our town, our community, and the people who live here. We ask these things in your Son, Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Chief. So now that it's 6 o'clock, we'll officially call this meeting to order. Madam Clerk, could you please take the roll?
Present in person, Mayor Miller,
Here.
Alderpersons Monroe,
Here.
Ross,
Here.
Parker,
Here.
Busker,
Here.
Shadle,
Here.
and Berberet.
Here.
Alderpersons attending remotely, Borneman,
Present.
Mysick.
Here.
Manager Bucus is here in person. Directors here in person, Boyer,
Here.
Sutman, Summers,
Here.
Hines, and Liggett.
Here.
Department heads attending remotely, Richter,
Present.
Huffines.
Here.
Back to attendees in person, myself, Clerk Anderson, and Legal Counsel Aaron Zito.
And if you could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance led by Alderman Shadle. Item number 1 is the approval of the agenda. Is there such a motion?
Second.
Madam Mayor,
Alderman Mysick?
I'd like to make an amendment to the agenda.
Okay.
I'd like to make a motion to table item number 10 to the next committee of the whole.
Second that.
Okay, so we have a motion to amend the agenda by Alderman Mysick, seconded by Alderman Berberet.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so for the amendment only,
Just to clarify, and Alderman Mysick and Alderman Berberet, if you want to just confirm that the motion would actually be a motion to postpone item number 10 to a specific date, which would be the next committee of the whole meeting.
Yes.
Correct. Thank you.
okay. Madam Clerk, could you please take the roll on the amending for removing item number 10 and placing it on next Monday's meeting for the Committee of the Whole?
Shadle,
Aye.
Mysick,
Aye.
Berberet,
Aye.
Borneman,
Aye. Sorry.
Aye.
Monroe,
Aye.
Ross, Parker,
No.
and Busker.
Aye.
The motion passes 7-1.
Okay, so now, Council, before you is item number 1, which is the amended version of tonight's agenda. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
Second.
It's really hard to tell who's speaking with masks on, so was that a motion made by Berberet, seconded by Shadle?
Yes.
Madam Clerk, could you please take the roll?
Shadle,
Aye.
Mysick,
Aye.
Berberet,
Aye.
Borneman,
Aye.
Monroe,
Aye.
Ross,
Aye.
Parker,
Aye.
and Busker.
Aye.
Motion passes 8-0.
Thank you. Item number 2 is approval of the minutes from the regular meeting on August 16th, 2021. Is there a motion to approve these minutes?
So moved.
Seconded.
We have a motion made by Alderman Busker, seconded by Alderman Monroe. Madam Clerk, would you please take the roll?
Shadle,
Aye.
Misick,
Aye.
Berbere,
Aye.
Borneman,
Aye.
Monroe,
Aye.
Ross,
Aye.
Parker,
Aye.
and Busker.
Aye.
Motion passes 8-0.
And there are no signed-in public comments, so we'll move on to item number 4, which is the consent agenda. The consent agenda is considered to be routine in nature and acted as one motion unless there's a member of the council that would like to have something removed for further discussion. Is there anything, council? Then the consent agenda consists of approving to receive and place on file the board and commission minutes from the Firefighters Pension Board dated April 29th, 2021, the Police Pension Board, April 29th, the Board of Fire and Police Commissioners, May 25th, June 1st, and 22nd, the Planning Commission from June 10th and July 8th, the Liquor Commission from July 8th, 29th, and August 2nd, and the Library Board dated July 14th, 2021. Also is the Greater Freeport Partnerships Monthly Report dated August 25th, the Building Permit Report for August 2021, the financial reports from General Fund, Library, Water, Sanitary Sewer, Storm Sewer Funds for July 2021, and the Cash and Investment Report for July 2021. Also our proclamations, September as National Suicide Prevention and Action Month, 9/11 National Day of Service and Remembrance, and the National Adult Daycare Service Week for September 19th to the 25th. Also is the approval of the finance bills payable in the total of $351.02. Also is the approval of payroll from pay period ending August 14th, 2021 in the total of $532,653.43. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved. Seconded.
Motion made by Alderman Busker, seconded by Alderman Monroe. Madam Clerk, could you please take the roll?
Shadle,
Aye.
Misick,
Aye.
Berbere,
Aye.
Borneman,
Aye.
Monroe,
Aye.
Ross, Parker,
Aye.
and Busker.
Aye.
Motion passes 8-0.
Thank you. Item number 5 is recognition of service awards. Manager Bucus.
Thank you, Your Honor. We'll start with Public Works and then the Fire Department, Police Department, and then I'll go last.
Just want to recognize Aaron Pennington for 20 years with the wastewater treatment plant. He's been a solid performer, and we thank him for his service.
I'd like to recognize Brian Book, firefighter Brian Book, for 15 years with the city, of which 12 has been with the fire department. He's been a firefighter, paramedic, and he's our hazardous materials team coordinator. He does an exceptional job. He was firefighter of the year in 2019. We certainly appreciate his service. So Brian, here's a certificate and some downtown Freeport bucks for you. We appreciate all the time that you put in and making us a better place. Congratulations.
I'd like to recognize Renee Schwartz. Renee Schwartz has been with us for 5 years, but when she came to our department, she brought with her a lot of law enforcement agency experience, and it's been so. I'm so grateful that she's had that experience because it's been a wonderful help to the police department. She's just not my assistant, but she's the assistant for the entire administrative staff. She keeps us all on our toes and keeps the department running. Most importantly, she puts up with me when I can't remember anything. She keeps me going in the right direction. So thank you for all your help and all your service to the police department and the city.
Kurt, you want to come up? I'd like to thank Kurt, who started with the city back in September of 2011. almost the 2019, 2011 as our GIS specialist for the Water and Sewer Department. His primary focus at that time was preparation and maintenance of the city's geographical information systems and databases, and he worked through that quite well. In the summer of 2017, the city realizes that we needed a information technology department, and of course Kurt was right there. We didn't have to look far because he was here, and we were able to promote him to this position, and he's been doing a great job for us ever since. And then after his promotion, Kurt even went out and received his Bachelor's of Science degree in Management Information Systems. So we're really proud of him about that as well, and he's working on his master's as well. So he's really done a lot for our department. And to say he saved the city money when all the work he's been doing is an understatement. As a finance director, I was very thankful to have Kurt as part of our team because he did do a lot of work, especially when it came to our phone system and that, and saved the city hundreds of thousands of dollars. So Kurt, we appreciate the last 10 years of work that you've been doing for us, and you're a valuable asset to me and the rest of the community here. And thank you for your service, and I'd give you your certificate and your bucks as well. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you to each one of you for your dedication to the city. Item number 6 is the second reading of Ordinance 2021-34. Madam Clerk, could you please read this?
Ordinance amending Section 1062.12 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Freeport regarding use of the cemetery perpetual fund.
Thank you. Manager Bucus?
Thank you, Your Honor. The city currently has a perpetual fund for the care of the city cemetery, and the current sale of graves is placed in the perpetual fund, and these fees for grave openings and other services is used for the actual general fund use. Staff's recommending that the City Council amend Section 1062 to allow the annual interest earned in the perpetual fund to be used for general maintenance and repairs in the cemetery, and adopt ordinance number 2021-34.
Discussion, council. If there is no further discussion on this topic, Madam Clerk, could you please take the roll?
Shadle?
Aye.
Mysick?
Aye.
Berberet?
Aye.
Borneman?
Aye.
Monroe?
Aye.
Ross?
Aye.
Parker?
Aye.
And Busker.
Aye.
Motion passes 8-0.
And item number 7 is the second reading of Ordinance 2021-36. Could you please read this?
Ordinance authorizing sale and maintenance agreement with Unite for lease of one interduct conduit on Empire Street.
Thank you. Director Boyer?
Thank you, Your Honor. Again, this agreement covers about 3,700 feet of 7-channel fiber conduit. We will be selling one of the microducts or one of the channels to Unite Private Networks for $20,000, as well as entering into a maintenance agreement with that company to maintain the conduit. Staff requests that council approve ordinance 2021-36, authorizing the sale of one microduct and maintenance agreement with Unite Private Network.
Thank you. Any questions or discussion, council? Madam Clerk, could you please take the roll?
Shadle?
Aye.
Mysick?
Aye.
Berberet?
Aye.
Borneman?
Aye.
Monroe?
Aye.
Ross?
Aye.
Parker?
Aye.
Busker?
Aye.
The motion passes 8-0.
Thank you. Item number 8 is the first reading of Ordinance 2021-35. Could you please read this?
Ordinance amending Section 480.12, restricted parking streets on Homer, west of Walnut Avenue.
Thank you. Director Boyer?
Thank you, Your Honor. Michelle and Gary Stannis have approached staff about adding a 2-hour loading zone in front of their business. There's no parking allowed on Walnut, and Homer has a lot of residents parking on that side, and there's no way that their customers and their employees can park close to the business. So staff is requesting that council approve a parking restriction, change the parking restrictions of ordinance 480.12B1E, and that would allow a 2-hour loading zone, courtesy zone in front of the business.
Alderman Ross?
Director, this at the corner of Homer and Walnut? On
Yes.
the-
Yes, sir.
As you're going south on the right-hand side?
Yes.
And right there, let's see, that business right there that business that's on the corner, they the one would like the 2-hour parking.
Yes, sir.
And how many spaces are they speaking of?
It would be one. There's really only room for one.
Yeah, I was about to say, because from the corner. Okay, 1 2-hour parking spot.
Right.
And that would that be for customers, or would that be for employees?
Well, it would be 2 hours, whether it's customers or employees. So
Okay.
either one.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor.
Alderman Parker?
I got a question for the chief. How do you feel as a police officer starting to put 2-hour parkings all over town? Is the enforcement almost impossible on that?
The enforcement will be a little difficult. I think it'll be dependent upon the business owner also to let us know if there's people violating that, that on an ongoing nature. But again, I think some education on that one spot would be important to do, to let them know that that's there for the business and things like that, and maybe some appropriate signage there.
Follow up, Your Honor? Okay, the way I see it, of course, being there, it's your choice, chief, is the owner's gonna call you, you're gonna go down and mark it, and then 2 hours later, you gotta send an officer back to read the marking to make sure it's 2 hours, and your manpower is short, you're busier than ever. I just think, and then there's nothing stopping from everywhere in town us wanting a 2-hour thing. I'm just against it, but thank you.
Alderman Berberet?
Thank you, Mayor. Director, would this be for 24/7 or just during business hours?
This would be 24/7, primarily because what you have is some of the residents that park in front of the business and kind of block it. We'll do that in the evening, and the vehicles will sit there throughout the business day.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
Actually, one quick question, Director Bohr. So you said it is going to be for 24 hours a day?
I take that. I'll take your correction. It's during business hours.
Yeah.
Okay, I
Yep.
take that
During
correction.
business.
Right. 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., Monday through Friday?
Yes.
Yep.
Mayor,
Alderman Ross?
Director, is there any other type of parking we could put there besides the 2 hour?
2-hour was the best option. There was nothing else that I'm aware of that the ordinance is, supports that we could put there.
Because it's just like Alderman Parker said, it kind of be like a dog chasing his tail when they park there too long, and then then the business person's gonna call. When then we see another officer over, it's gonna be back and forth, back and forth. I mean, I know it's a difficult deal, and I feel sorry for the business, true enough. But, man, that's gonna be hard one to regulate.
As I understand it, Alderman, it's primarily, you've got some residents that park there in the evenings, and then their cars aren't moved during regular business hours.
Okay.
So I see that as the main issue. So if they could just, get the folks out of there, then they would have some room for their customers and their employees to park.
And follow up one more. Would the sign state what time?
Yes,
It would state what time
yes,
they
just
could-
like a regular 2-hour zone.
And then after that, okay.
Any further discussion, council? Alderman Monroe?
As for the chief. So Chief, that would be Ted that would be going out and marking the tire, not one of your regular officers, is that correct?
For the most part, 9 to 5, Community Service Officer Austin handles the handles the 2-hour parking in the parking complaints.
So, okay, thank you.
Mayor,
Alderman Borneman?
I'll make a motion to move this forward.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion made by Alderman Borneman, seconded by Alderman Shadle to move ordinance 2021-35 onto the next regular meeting. Item number 9 is the first reading of ordinance 2021-38. Could you please read this?
Ordinance waiving $10,000 issuance fee for lapse in liquor license by Royco, Inc.
Thank you. Manager Bucus?
Thank you, Your Honor. The city ordinance requires liquor licenses to be renewed by the 30th of July of each year. Failure to renew by this deadline requires the issuance of a new license. Royal Co., Inc. Failed to renew their Tier 1 liquor license in a timely manner. As such, they should be considered a new liquor license applicant. The Liquor Commission eventually approved the renewal and voted to recommend to the City Council that they waive the $10,000 issuance fee. The new renewal fee for a Tier 1 liquor license is normally $1,000. If a reissuance fee is imposed, it would be $10,000. Though the course of the pandemic, the City Council has rebated part of the liquor license fees to the liquor store holders this past year. This was to help them through the crisis. The Liquor Commission is recommending the waiver of the $10,000 fee. Staff agrees and also recommends that the Liquor Commission look at late fee schedule for applicants that do not submit their applications in a timely manner. This has been a problem for us in the past, and we hope to stop it in the future.
Alderman Parker?
Make a motion to move it forward.
Second it.
Okay, so we have a motion made by Alderman Parker, seconded by Alderman Ross to move ordinance 2021-38 onto the next regular meeting. Was there any discussion on this, council? Alderman Berberet?
Thank you. Manager Bucas, I think I heard you say that we're going to review a late fee system as opposed to having reissue a new license for $10,000. Is that what I heard you say? Or
No.
No, okay.
What I'm recommending is that the Liquor Commission look at a late fee schedule.
Late fee schedule.
Right, because right now we don't have one. So either
Well,
you
that's what I
pay the renewal or you pay the issuance fee.
All right, thank you. That sounds equitable too. Thank you.
Anything else, council? And we will move on to item number 11, which is the first reading of ordinance 2021-40. Madam Clerk, would you please read this?
Ordinance approving addition of Chapter 1278, self-serve storage facilities to the codified ordinances.
Thank you. Director Hines.
Thank you. So self-service storage facilities have become more popular, and we've received a bunch of calls regarding requirements for these types of facilities. Our zoning code doesn't currently define self-service storage. We really lump it in with just general storage, and they are different. And we don't define standards for these types of facilities either. So we're proposing the amendment that adds Chapter 1278 to our code, which would be self-service storage facilities. And this would set standards for use and design. Separately, we define facility, unit/storage unit, movable unit, shipping container, and pod type unit. Shipping containers and pod type containers are a subset of movable units, and the prohibited uses are standard to exclude all uses except for the storage of non-flammable and hazardous and other objects. The general design standard includes no electrical outlets are permitted inside or outside for individual storage units, and light fixtures must be secure. A minimum of 1 shrub shall be required for every 3,000 square feet of lot area, and a minimum of 1 tree required for every 5,000 square feet of lot area. And that's really to create a nicer landscape on the property. And then landscape buffers, either trees, hedges, plantings, or a combination, to be installed when these types of facilities are next to residential areas. All areas intended for driving, parking, and loading shall be paved with asphalt or concrete. The max height of light fixtures installed to illuminate parking lots and exterior grounds is 30 feet, or the height of the tallest structure on the facility, whichever is lesser. No outdoor storage permitted. And then for design standards for movable units, this includes that they must be stored in straight lines or on contoured curves to reflect topography. No stacking in any way that may be dangerous, and the purpose of that is really so it's not chaotic, and there's not these movable pod units just placed randomly everywhere. It has a little bit more structure to it. And then these movable units are limited to 14-day use on property that's not zoned as self-service storage, so like residential property, or if it's a restaurant or any other type of use, that they could only have those types of pods on the property for up to 14 days, say if they're moving out of the business or they're moving in, but it can't go past that 14 days. Facilities will be allowed in the zoning districts as follows. So A1, so agricultural, all self-service storage would be permitted, so that's including the movable units and shipping containers. B2-1, self-service storage excluding the shipping containers would require a special use permit. And then in B3, self-service storage excluding shipping containers is permitted. And in M1, manufacturing, all self-service storages are permitted, so that's including the shipping containers and movable units. So we went over these changes with one of the local storage facility owners, and they didn't see any problems with that. I know they were looking to expand their business, and they thought that all of these amendments would be okay and reasonable to follow. Staff recommends the approval of the text amendment to add this chapter pertaining to the self-service storage facilities, and the Planning Commission also recommended the approval of this. They voted 7-0 at the public hearing on August 10th. And I can take any questions about this.
Director Hines, are these from best practices of other communities?
Yeah, we looked at a few other communities and kind of compiled what we thought made the most sense for Freeport. So yes.
And then you said that in discussions with current storage facilities, you didn't have anyone that was concerned about these guidelines?
That's correct.
And if they're not in compliance, are you grandfathering them in, or are they given so many days to comply?
I think in general with zoning, they would be grandfathered in. I think you could make it so that they have to comply within a certain time frame, but they would technically be considered legal non-conforming. I don't think any of our existing storage facilities really fall too much outside of what these requirements or standards set. But for any future facilities, then we have these standards in place.
And was there any discussion with the new storage in the Shopko building? Do they understand all these as well? Do they have any issues?
No, but the plans that we received from them are the building is going to look really nice. So we don't see any issues with that either.
Okay, good. Thank you. Counsel? Burberry?
Thank you. Director Hines, clarify or explain a little bit more about the trees and the shrubs.
Yeah. Yeah, it's almost a little bit arbitrary, but it basically just sets more of a beautification aspect for these properties. So when you're thinking of a self-service storage facility, sometimes they can just be shipping containers lined up. So adding in these shrub or tree requirements can then just make it look a little bit nicer, add a aesthetic to it, nice aesthetic.
So they would be meeting the letter of the law if they put in a little 2-inch fir tree, right, and let it grow?
Yeah, I guess so.
I guess so, okay.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
And what about enforcement? I mean, I see some pods on residential driveways around town. How would those be categorized, and how would that be enforced if they were there for more than 14 days?
So we would end up issuing a violation warning and then issuing a notice if it's not moved. So if they do have if a residential property has one of these movable pods on their driveway, we can ask that they move it into a garage or shed, and as long as it's covered, it can be there longer than that 14-day period. Or they could put temporary coverage around it as long as it's in that aligns with our temporary fencing requirements, but if it is there longer than the 14 days and they're not moving it, then we would have to issue a violation warning or a notice.
Thank you.
Are there special circumstances that'll be allowed, where say that can just, change from 14 to 28 or?
We didn't identify anything like that in the code, but I think that could be something that could be added if it's maybe something similar to our dumpster ordinance that we're talking about tonight, is that we're proposing that they can have it for up to 28 days in a calendar year, but they would come in and get a permit, so we would know that they have it on hand. So that could be something similar that we do with the movable pods.
Madam Mayor,
Alderman Busker.
make a motion to move this forward.
I'll second that.
We have a motion made by Alderman Busker, seconded by Alderman Parker to move ordinance 2021-40 on to the next regularly scheduled meeting. If there's no further discussion, we will move on to item number 12, which is the first reading of ordinance 2021-41. Could you please read this?
Ordinance approving text amendments for chapters 1272 and 1060 regarding dumpsters.
Thank you. Director Hines.
Thank you. So this ordinance is regarding, it came out of responding to complaints of garbage and debris. So in an effort to reduce these types of violations to garbage, we're proposing an amendment on regulations on dumpsters that are found in our zoning code and in Chapter 1060, which is on the garbage regulations. So the amendment to Chapter 1272 is about the screening requirements for dumpsters. Currently, our code requires every single dumpster to be screened on 3 sides by a solid fence at least 6 feet in height with a gate that must be closed except on pickup days. Active construction sites or properties with dumpsters on site for less than 30 days are exempt from the screening requirement. This is not, it hasn't been enforced historically in the city, and we've started responding to complaints about commercial properties not having their dumpsters enclosed, and we enforce the code as we normally do, but we realized that those it didn't really make a whole lot of sense for a lot of the commercial properties, that they had it generally covered up or hidden away from the public view, and so to make them enclose that would be a little bit of a burden on some of these businesses, especially some of the businesses that haven't had a lot of traffic in the last year with COVID. But our amendment proposes that properties in residential districts still would have to screen in or store indoors or away from view dumpsters, and anyone using a dumpster on a residential property must obtain a no-fee permit if the dumpster is going to be on site for more than 28 days in a calendar year. And so that's just so we can keep track of if we see a dumpster on a property, and then we know it's not temporary, they just have it on site. And then all other districts must place dumpsters in inconspicuous spaces from the public right-of-way. And this, like I said, this change stems from a review of the dumpsters that we have at commercial properties and really how it's currently used or how they're currently hidden from the public view. A lot of larger corporations, McDonald's, for example, will always enclose their dumpster, but they also have it placed in a spot because of the way that they have their drive-through set up. It's always placed in a spot that would be visible. But places like the Lincoln Mall, they have their dumpsters hidden behind the building, and there are a lot of other examples like that in the city. So the amendment to Chapter 1060 then regarding waste and recycling collections and disposal, it would align with the zoning code regulations on dumpsters and addresses complaints that we have repeatedly received and language that needs clarification. So currently we don't receive notification when someone orders a dumpster to place on the public right-of-way for temporary use. I'd have one dumpster for 30 days, dump it, replace it with a new one, and then have it on site for another 30 days. And this is something we've seen and we've gotten repeated complaints about from a neighbor. And they found the loophole in the system. And so the proposed amendment would limit that temporary dumpster to 28 days within a calendar year, similar to the amendment to the zoning code. and it would require permits in 7-day increments from the start. So the first 7 days wouldn't be charged like it is now, and then it would be $10 per 7 days that the dumpster is on site. At the community development director's discretion, we may issue an additional 28-day permit for new construction beyond the initial 28-day period. We've received complaints regarding the use of temporary dumpsters for these longer periods of times, and so this would limit that. And in addition, we amended the language in Chapter 1060 to clarify and create standards for use of toters versus dumpsters. So institutional, commercial, business, or industrial establishments, apartment buildings of greater than 6 units, and mobile home parks not included in the residential household waste collection program, which produce solid waste within the corporate limits of the city, are required to provide sufficient and adequate containers for waste. This does not specify the use of dumpsters, resulting in toters scattered around multifamily apartment buildings where dumpsters are not used. So the amendment clarifies that bulk waste containers must be used at these facilities rather than toters. So this would just require, really the purpose of this is that at apartment buildings that have 6 or more units would have to provide a dumpster for their residents to use versus having toters for every individual unit on site. Staff went over these proposed amendments with waste collection companies in Freeport. Before the hearing, their suggestion was that the city inform them when we do issue a permit for a dumpster so that they know that the individual has come to us, that they've gotten that permit. We did talk with them again last week. They had some concerns around picking up dumpsters on commercial properties if they are in enclosed spaces. But this amendment would get rid of that requirement to put it in an enclosed space unless it can't be completely hidden from the public view. And currently the code does require them to be in an enclosed space. So as the code is written, every single dumpster in the city should be covered on all 3 sides. So we recommend approval of this text amendment. The Planning Commission had a public hearing on August 10th and voted 7-0 to approve the text amendment. They did recommend that we look into adding more specific requirements for downtown buildings and dumpster use. And that came from a concern that not all downtown residents or tenants are provided with a dumpster. And this results in people using public garbage bins located on the streets for dumping their garbage. We've seen an influx in people putting their garbage bags in the garbage bins throughout the downtown, and they're at the end of the weekend you see them overflowing sometimes. So the downtown bins, the commission ultimately voted to approve the text amendment as it is, but requested that we look at a requirement that may provide, or that may require downtown building owners or landlords to provide dumpsters for their tenants. We're not exactly sure what that would look like yet. We want to talk to downtown businesses, building owners, residents to see what they're currently doing and what would be a reasonable requirement for that. But the Planning Commission ultimately recommended that we look into that to add to this later on. So I can take any questions about this. This was a long explanation.
Alderman Parker?
Yeah, this should be simple. I know a few businesses in town that have the dumpster and they're enclosed. They put them out the day before dumping and then put them back in. Is there a time limit that they can't put them out, people can pick up? Or?
Yep, they would have to follow the time limit that every other resident would have to follow. So we have to put them out, or you can put them out the night before, and they have to be picked up within that.
That's perfect.
Yeah, I can't remember the exact time frame, but it's yeah.
That answers the question. Thank you.
Yep.
Alderman Ross?
Okay, Director, what if you just keep the lid closed on it, and it's still, and it's still exposed to the public? And you just have the lid, you make sure that the lid is closed every night before you leave.
As long as it's generally hidden from the public view. So if you have a business that's facing the street, but you can put the dumpster behind your building, and it's generally hidden from that main street, then that would be reasonable.
Follow up. What if you're not able to get it behind the building? It has to be out. Once you fill the dumpster up, it's going to be kind of hard to move, and they can't drive in the grass to the truck won't drive in the grass to pick it up, especially in the wintertime. Yeah, that's my question right there is,
Yeah. So by the proposed amendment, then you would be required to enclose that, just as the current ordinance stands. That would be the requirement with the proposed amendment. If you're not able to hide it, then you would put that enclosure around it.
okay, could you say that again, please?
So if you're not able to hide the dumpster, based on the current code and the proposed amendment, then that would have to be enclosed.
Okay, so in other words, you would have to build a fence around it.
Yep, yeah, and with a gate so you can take it in and out as needed.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Alderman Burberry?
Thank you. I'm always interested in how these amendments, as well as new legislation, comes about. Have we received hundreds and hundreds of complaints against dumpsters all over town with garbage falling out of them, or?
We do receive a lot of complaints about dumpsters and just garbage in general.
Who do-
That's
who do those-
probably one of our bigger complaints.
Really?
But one of we had a specific situation where we got complaints about a resident having a dumpster on site. They went through that loophole and kept getting the dumpster replaced, and we got repeated calls about the property, but they were technically following the rules. By not having that enclosed, they just were doing the temporary dumpster. And then after we had issued violation warnings and notices for this dumpster, then we got repeated calls about commercial dumpsters throughout the community. And so, I mean, just based on that specific situation, we ended up doing an overview of dumpsters in the city, and what our code currently says does not match what people are doing.
Okay, follow up. Will we do anything to, excuse the term, regulate the fencing? What if I put up a bunch of junky old 2x4s and make slats, and does it have to be a solid structure around it? Can it be any kind of?
Yeah, so
Can't just
in
put
the
up
code-
a wire fence, can I?
Let me try and find this. We do have some language in here that would require it to generally match the aesthetic of the space around it, and so you couldn't just put up a wire fence. You would have to put up some type of solid fencing that would cover it.
Thank you.
Mayor?
Alderman Busker?
Yes, as with the temporary placement on public right-of-ways for construction use and whatnot, reading through here, we're going to require another permit. Is there any way that for construction use, we could just add that as a check mark on the building permit or something? Because we've been trying to work with these contractors instead of having to make more paperwork and more fees for them, make it easier to do business in the city. And now we're going to throw another permit on top of them. Either that, or if they can just pay the garbage company, and the garbage company gives us an address, and they can get the permit right from the garbage company instead of having to call two different places to get a dumpster. I mean, just try to think about things to streamline it for contractors. That would be great.
Yeah, we can certainly add just a check mark to the building permit. I think if we were to do that, we may have to change the language about the fee in here if we didn't want to add the fee onto, if someone was getting a building permit and they just wanted to check off that they had that dumpster, the language might have to change on that. Sorry, I lost my train of thought.
Follow up? Yeah, unless, I don't see why, other than it's just another kind of mechanism to keep people from keeping the dumpster longer. I don't necessarily think the fees are really that necessary to have. If someone's spending the money to do construction on their house, they don't need to be bothered with $10 fee here and there from the city. If the time limit's up and the permit doesn't get renewed, then the garbage company's mandated to come pick up the dumpster and then collect from there.
Yeah, so what I was going to say before, now that I remember, was that internally, we had considered talking with the garbage pickup companies and asking them to put that burden on them to get that permit, let us know what they have, but we didn't think that would be necessary. We thought that it should be the responsibility of the homeowner or the tenant or the building owner, business owner, to come in and get that. They currently have to anyways. It is set in the code that so they have 7 days they have 14 days to have a temporary dumpster on site without any permit, and then they should come in and get a permit for $7.50 per 7-day period. And then they can have that for the 30-day increments continuously by the current code. But with this change, then they still they would have that first 7 days no fee, but we would add $10 per 7 days and just up to 28 days. And for new construction, we had talked with our building inspector to kind of gauge from his perspective when he's going out and doing inspections, and he has a background in construction as well, if he thinks it's necessary to have these out for longer than 28 days or longer than 60 days or whatever it is. And from his point of view, he's seen builders, they have a dumpster out for the entire construction period, but it doesn't actually get filled until the very end. So, they're trying to save money by only dumping it one time or twice or whatever it is, but they don't necessarily need to have that on site for that entire period of time. We weighed whether or not that would be a good requirement, but in the end, we'd kind of internally thought that people might try and cheat the system somehow if we didn't set boundaries and standards for how long these dumpsters could be out on sites.
Mayor.
Alderman Ross?
Okay, Director, this may seem like a crazy question, but aren't we kind of contradicting ourselves when it comes to dumpsters compared to totes? You see a bunch of totes together, and they're visible to the public. And the small single dumpster is visible to the public, but the small single dumpster will be gone, but the totes will still be visible to the public because they're going to be there all year round.
Mm-hmm. So I think part of the text amendment will help with that, with the setting the limits for apartments with over six or more units. Then they'd be required to have a dumpster. We've seen a lot of issues with apartment complexes that'll have a bunch of toters, two toters for every single unit. It's hard to get all of those people to comply with the rules, and it's hard to cover those up then too. So I think that part of this text amendment will help with that. I do think that our current code does require that the toters are hidden too. I think it can be challenging for our community because of the way that the houses are built and the landscape of the homes are set up. So it is a challenge, and we haven't fully enforced that either, I'll be honest, because most houses will end up having to put them outside somewhere. As long as they're generally put up against the house or neatly maintained at a home, we don't do anything. If we do see dumpsters or if we do see toters that are, there's overflowing garbage and they're just in the front yard or they're out in the public right of way, then we do issue violation warnings for that. But if they're generally just up against the house and you can see them as you're walking on the street, most of the homes in the community do have to end up doing that.
Yeah. Well, I totally agree with you. It's going to be quite challenging. That is for sure there. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Alderman Berberet?
This may or may not be directly related, but I have seen in my neighborhood and others large, very large mobile homes that are bigger than a couple of dumpsters. Are they required to have a permit to have it sit there all winter?
So our code allows for RVs to be parked in a driveway as long as it's not blocking the sidewalk, and I believe that was an amendment that was made within the last few years.
It was, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, but they don't pay a fee for that. But if I put a dumpster there for a certain period of time, I'm gonna have to pay a fee.
Yes.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Alderman Monroe.
Yes, and, you know, I'm also very worried, as, you know, Alderman Busker kind of pointed out, we've got a lot of new construction projects that are getting ready to start, and it seems a little crazy to put what seems like we're trying to solve a small problem, and we're creating this much bigger ordinance to cover all of these different things. And there's a lot of other issues with blight and cleanup that I think are much bigger problem. And, you know, one of the things that this ordinance doesn't even really address is how many dumpsters per units, that type of thing. I've lived in apartments, spent time traveling around the country and, you know, while I was in the military, and those dumpsters are overflowing and garbage is falling all over the ground and blowing around. That's a much bigger problem than, you know, where they sit or if they sit for a period of time. I think we should try and address the problem and not try to capture every single possibility, especially with, you know, the Hy-Vee, potential other entities coming into that area, what's going on with the construction in the old Shopco building and others. I don't know how everybody else feels, but it just seems like we're looking for things to have a problem with instead of really just focusing on what the problem is and going after that. But that's just my 2 cents.
Mayor Miller.
Alderman Borneman.
Thank you. Mr. Monroe, I guess my question, if you had to articulate, what do you think that problem is that you're talking about?
Well, it sounds like some folks are putting dumpsters in front of their homes and just leaving them there for long periods of time. I think that's easily addressable. And, you know, most of the businesses I'm seeing around town, they have them tucked behind their buildings. They have them fenced in. Both the Walmart, or not Walmart, Walmart has theirs. Also, you go to, you know, the food, Cubs Food, Sullivan's, others, they're all behind the buildings or they're in fenced areas. McDonald's the same way. You know, Burger King. I guess I'm not seeing the problem. I drive around a lot, but I do see, you know, I took 2 phone calls today. Mattresses throwing out on private property, trash bags, tree debris, those types of things. I think we've got other issues to deal with than a dumpster in someone's driveway. But if the neighbors are complaining and we come up with an ordinance, let's deal with that ordinance. Let's not go after this whole, because I don't know. Unless somebody can point a picture out, I've not seen, you know, an example of this. It's been.
Yeah, okay, thanks. I don't disagree with you. Mayor, I have some more questions. That's all right.
Go ahead.
So I'll start. I have questions for the director, but I'm going to pose one to Attorney Zito and then come back to you, give you a chance to think about it. I know it can be difficult sometimes to be put on the spot. But for Director Hines, if I'm not mistaken, this issue came up with you and I discussed one where a residential, like apartment complex, every unit was issued a trash can and then a toter. And then at garbage time, well, I guess apparently the toters just stayed on the side of the road at the time. The residents didn't necessarily have a place to even bring them in. And then when, especially garbage day, there'd be a large line of toters kind of in a row. And so is that one of the reasons the department started to look at or amending this ordinance?
Yes, that's correct. We've gotten complaints about toters for those specific situations where they're not picked up, and there's all of them that are lined up. For the one specific situation I know you were talking about, there's about 10 of them at a time sometimes that are out there, and then only a few get picked up, and it's hard to regulate these larger apartment complexes when it comes to them having toters out. And then and in addition to that, snow plowing can be challenging when all these toters are placed out in front of these smaller unit complexes, and they're not picked up in time.
Thanks. Okay. And then for Attorney Zito, sorry, I forgot to tell you the question, but is this type of language, to me, I think it's somewhat broad or vague, maybe difficult to enforce. When we talk about it must be architecturally compatible, that one might not be as difficult. But when it comes to the determination by the Director of Public Works as to whether a dumpster is in a conspicuous spot. So I have one more question for Director Hines, and then I'll let you think about that before I put you on the spot there, if that's all right. Mayor, I'm going to keep going.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, and then the permit, Director Hines, is it fair to say the purpose of the permit is to really track the amount of time a dumpster is in a location? Is that fair to say? That's why we need a permit, so the city can actually track when the dumpster got there and when it was removed, or
Yeah,
have a record?
that's correct. If to compare it to what was discussed earlier with the cars that are parked for 2 hours, someone will get a call, then they might have been there for 2 hours already, but we have to mark them, and then we come back 2 hours later and they've been there for 4 hours now. We have the same situation with the dumpsters where we see them or we get a complaint about them. They might have been out there for 13 days, but we just see them for the first time. And so we give them 14 days to come in and get a permit then, but they might have already been out there for 13 days. So getting that permit from the very start is helping trying to limit that time frame and limit the amount of calls that we might get about the dumpsters that are sitting out.
Okay, so if for that to work, the person would have to get a permit right away, if I'm understanding that right. Are the dumpster companies, do they inform, are you aware if they're informing their clients that they need to get a permit from the city? Because I could imagine if I was to get a dumpster, I probably wouldn't have known that a permit is required.
I'm not aware if they are right now.
Okay. That's all I have for the director, and then Attorney Zito, if you're available.
Yep. And so the language regarding, using generally inconspicuous, from the public right away there, it is a little broad there, but that being said, in looking at other communities, in my experience, it is language like that that's similar, that, they do use generally out of view of the public from the right of way or this and that. So it is similar type language there that allows for a certain amount of discretion being placed into the hands of the community to use a reasonableness standard as to whether or not you can actively see this from where the public would be standing or viewing from. There could maybe we use a little bit of different language than inconspicuous, possibly, but it's still going to be generally along the lines of out of view generally. And again, I hate to try to define a term by using the term there, but it is kind of this broad-based language that you'll see in a lot of codes there, because what you're trying to avoid is a situation, the alternative, which is the dumpster must be 100% out of view from anywhere, and then you end up with a lot of problems with, well, if it happens to be a corner lot, it's almost impossible to then completely have that hidden from view unless you are going to then require everything to have a fenced-in dumpster enclosure. So, and I think that's where you're trying to find a balance between both ends of the spectrum.
Okay, thanks. That's all I have.
Madam Mayor.
Alderman Busker?
Yeah, to Alderman Boardman's question there about the permits, I'd find it really difficult to believe that we wouldn't be able to find out how long a dumpster is by calling up been at a place by calling up the haulers. I mean, when I call them and I ask how much it's going to cost to have a dumpster, well, you get charged, you can have it for this many days for this price, this many dumps for this price. They're tracking their dumpsters, so I don't think, the phone call saying, hey, when did you guys drop this dumpster off? They should be able to find a date real quick for you there. It's just my 2 cents on that one.
Mayor.
Alderman Borneman?
Thank you. I hate to prolong the discussion, but that's a good point. Those companies certainly track their inventory. With that being said, Attorney Zito, do you have an issue? Do you think it'd be something where the city would have to like go out and, if a company wasn't willing to provide that information, would that be kind of an extra step that would end up being not, I mean, I guess kind of burdensome compared to the actual relief the city's going to attempt to obtain?
I'm not quite hearing the question. Eric, I'm sorry, if you could maybe rephrase it or clarify a little bit.
Yeah, just, you know, if a dumpster company or a disposal company won't provide that information that Mr. Busker mentioned, I mean, how would the code enforcement go about resolving that?
So,
Legally, would a warrant be required and all these steps that seem kind of, to me, excessive?
sure. And I think you bring up a really, really good point to the extent that certainly if the garbage company is willing to provide that data as to when the dumpster was dropped off, that's great. But I think it's not, beyond the realm of possibility that they're going to say, no, we don't give out, that's private information. That's our company information. We're not going to make that available to the public. That we're going to get that response every so often. So then where are we left as a city is in trying to figure out when was the dumpster dropped off there. And that's difficult. I'm not aware of a situation. I guess I've never seen a city go and try to get some sort of a warrant to a third-party private company to say you must turn over your company records to the city so that we can then do code enforcement on it. If anything, I've seen communities then have to rely on their own code enforcement to say, as they're out driving around, that they're just noting, whether it be with a photograph or this or that, oh, there was a dumpster here and it seems to be here for, 3 weeks later it's still there or whatever it is. So without this permitting process, it can become difficult to definitively know when a dumpster was dropped off, especially if the company is not going to tell us when it was dropped off.
Okay, thanks. And sorry, that was kind of a hypothetical that probably didn't need to be discussed, but thanks for your input.
Well, if I'm hearing correctly, I kind of gather that no one really has any issues with the portion of this that would require apartment buildings of 6 or greater to have dumpsters, and that whole aspect of, trying to clean up our neighborhoods. I think there's a few sticking points I'm hearing from the permit end of it. Is this correct?
Mhm.
So what's your pleasure, council? How do you want to move forward? Alderman Berberet?
I don't know that I have an answer for moving forward, and I certainly don't, in our economy today, don't need to put more regulations and details on any business, but when you look through the $2.2 million worth of improvements and work being done in the Freeport, and you look at the permits being issued, is it not typically the contractor or the builder or the HVAC company that actually gets the permit on behalf of the person who's having the work done in their home or wherever? A similar analogy would be to have the dumpster company get the permit. That way they know exactly we would know exactly when it's taken out, but that's another burden on the company in today's world. So I don't know what the best solution to that is, but there should be one way of tackling that.
Director Hines, I just want, for clarification, is the situation that people are complaining about usually maybe not as much the professional contractors who have been hired to do a job, whether at your residential home to do a remodel or a re-roofing, or at a commercial store, where they're, renovating a building. It's not that scenario that I don't think is a problem where people are abusing the system with a dumpster, but more so your individual property owner who is saying, I don't want to pay for, a toter or residential garbage service like that. I'd rather just, for whatever reasons, I want to keep a dumpster in my yard for my own personal residential use. Is that kind of more the scenario? Or the person who says, I'm renovating my home, but that renovation has now gone on for 5 years, and they've just kept a dumpster in their front yard that whole time? Is that kind of more of what you're getting the complaints about?
Yes, I would say the main issue is just having dumpsters on residential properties in the driveway or in the front yard or wherever it is that aren't covered up. The 28 or plus 28 day limit for the commercial or not commercial, the new construction properties, or general reconstruction or whatever it is, that really stem from, building permits are issued for a year at a time, and so some of these places are having a dumpster out for that entire year when they don't necessarily need it for every single type of work that they're doing. So it's setting a little bit more of a limit for what they're doing. But that being said, I did mention we had gone back and forth about how to set that up for new construction, and not wanting to necessarily be a burden on these companies who are coming in and they want to do good in the city. And so, if council wanted to alter that for new construction specifically, I think that would be reasonable.
Alderman Burberry?
Just to carry it to the logical extreme, if I have a dumpster and I have to build a three-sided container wall around it with a gate, will I need a building permit to do that?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Point made. Just adding more cost to a person doing business.
Madam Mayor,
Yes, Manager Bucus.
one thing I think is being missed in the whole discussion is we're looking at the beautification of the city. And as Director Hines pointed out, we have a resident that's had a dumpster on, continually for every 20, 30 days because they know the rules. They know the loophole. We're trying to correct that so they don't have a dumpster there all year round. We do have dumpsters that are very visible and that are overflowing at times because they need a bigger dumpster or they need more pickups. We're getting those complaints. You're getting those complaints and referring them to us. And we're going out and we're in the trenches trying to get it done. This is a tool that we need to help keep the city clean and help keep neighborhoods up. And that's why we're presenting this to you tonight.
Mayor?
Alderman Borneman?
Thank you. Overall, I'm pretty in favor of this ordinance. I could see the need to. Would not be opposed to eliminating monetary fees for permits. But overall, I'm in favor of this. This is something that exactly what Mr. Bucus said is about beautification as well as the other purposes behind it. So something that's needed, probably in other sides of town more than others, but it's probably needed throughout the city of Freeport. And I am going to make a motion to move this forward.
We have a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Never let anything lack second. So second.
We have a second by Alderman Busker. Alderman Monroe, did you have something you wanted to add?
I did. Mayor, I applaud the efforts to beautify the city. I mean, it's something that's very important to me. I agree that it needs to happen. My biggest fear when we start adding these fees is that people are going to do more of what they're doing already, and we're getting illegal dumping, we're getting things like that because they don't want to pay the fees. They don't want to do the paperwork. And, I'm concerned about that, but I know that I understand the city manager's position. It makes sense. But, there's a whole lot of language and a whole lot of extra in this that doesn't need to be there. We need to simplify things. It's kind of like the parking downtown. We're back to that. And then Dovey will come to us in 6 months and go, nobody knows what to do. And it's the same problem that we run into. How do you enforce it? What do you do with it? Who's actually enforcing it? All of those types of things. It's done in good intentions. Nobody here on this council, anybody on the directors are malicious in what they're trying to do. They're trying to make Freeport a better place to live for all of us. I'm very concerned that it'll actually increase illegal dumping instead of actually beautifying. We deal with one person and now we're trying to do it for everything in the city. And I do agree the size of dumpster for apartment buildings, how many units, all that type of stuff needs to be addressed. But I think they need to be done separately. But that's my opinion, my thoughts.
Any further discussion on this ordinance, council? Then we will move on
Mayor.
to, yes.
I guess for the benefit of staff then, between first and second reading, would any of the aldermen would like to then suggest any revisions or to give staff the direction to look at ways to try to pare this down? I'm just looking to see what direction to give staff, because otherwise we're just going to end up with the ordinance as presented coming right back to you guys at second reading, so.
Madam Mayor.
Alderman Busker?
Yeah, I guess I should have said that with my second. I'd like to see some simplification for the permitting process for, these people who are the contractors not trying to get the new construction going. That's one of the biggest complaints we get is you got to go after another permit, this permit, just try to streamline it as much as possible, within between here and there. So that's what I'd like to see changed. And, yeah, if we could do it without the fee structure, that'd be great, but I know we need the money too, so.
So, Mayor, if I could withdraw the motion at this time. I'm not sure if it's
And then
procedurally appropriate.
I'll withdraw my second if he wants to withdraw his.
Okay. What's the pleasure of the council? Do you want to move this to the committee of the whole? Do you want to just task the staff to do those few things that Alderman Busker said? What's the direction for tonight's meeting with this?
Can I ask another question?
Alderman Borneman?
Thank you. I guess director or manager, is there a time crunch to get this in before any change in the season or anything of that nature? Or is this something that could be brought, I guess, I don't know, you probably wouldn't have revisions by next week, so I'm assuming it'd be October's committee of the whole.
I think we could bring some potential changes next week or just have a general discussion about it. And in the meantime, work on some changes for the September 20th council meeting. I think that would be fine.
So maybe it's solved by a motion to move this to the next committee of the whole?
So moved.
Seconded.
I got one more question.
Okay, just 1 second. We have a motion made by Alderman Busker, seconded by Alderman Monroe to move this ordinance to the next committee of the whole. Alderman Ross.
What I would like to see is, do we have any comparisons compared to any other community when it comes to this? I mean, see how they're doing it, or
Yeah.
just something to go on?
Yeah, we've been working on this for probably about 6 months now. It's not something we did overnight. We've had these complaints for a very long period of time. So We've looked into what other communities are doing, and we've tried to see what our community is doing and what might fit best for our community. That being said, we can still look out and see what else there is out there.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Do we need a vote on that?
To send it back to yeah. So, because I think there was,
Yes, we had a motion made by Alderman Busker, seconded by Alderman Rowe, to move to the next committee of the whole. Madam Clerk, would you please take the roll?
Shadle?
Aye.
Mysick?
Aye.
Berbere?
Aye.
Borneman?
Aye.
Monroe?
Aye.
Ross?
Aye.
Parker?
Aye.
And Busker.
Aye.
Motion passes 8-0.
Okay, then we'll move on to item number 13, which is the first reading of Ordinance 2021-42. Could you please read this?
My apologies, I'm running out of room with all these votes. Amending the zoning code and the building and housing code pertaining to the regulation of drive-through and curbside delivery services.
Thank you. Director Hines.
Thank you. So the language around drive-through services in our business code right now are a little bit outdated and unclear, and we don't currently have standards in place for these drive-throughs and curbside services, and we've seen some issues with that as well. So drive-throughs are described as drive-ins in our code right now, not drive-throughs, and we don't have any drive-ins in Freeport. If you're thinking about like a Sonic restaurant or even a movie theater, a drive-in movie theater, but to clarify the drive-through regulations and to set standards among all businesses, we made these following changes, or we're recommending these changes. So it would be the addition of Chapter 1276, which would be drive-throughs and curbside services. This sets definitions and construction standards like stacking limitations, which is just the number of vehicles that can be in line at one time, and bypass lane requirements, shielding exterior light from beyond the property line, requiring a solid fence or hedge along adjacent residential property, prohibiting interference with traffic on adjacent streets or private property. This chapter would require dedicated parking for curbside services, except within the central business district, which is generally the downtown area. Sets operational standards like maximum speaker volume and prohibiting interference with neighboring private properties. For B11, we added banks and financial institutions and pharmacies with drive-throughs as a permitted use. Currently, no drive-throughs are permitted in B11. And then we added a special use requirement for drive-throughs connected to any other permitted use, which would be like a restaurant. And then for B21 and B3, we added it as a permitted use, including all drive-through services and curbside services. Special use would include drive-ins. And then in M1, permitted use would include any type of drive-through and curbside services. P1 would include drive-through or curbside services in connection with permitted uses that are allowed. So that would really be focusing on financial institutions or pharmacies would be the general idea for the P1, which is professional. There are probably less than a handful of properties that are zoned professional. So our staff recommendation is to approve this text amendment to add the Chapter 1276 and then add these additional permitted or special use requirements within the zoning code. The Planning Commission held a public hearing on August 10th and voted 7-0 to recommend approval of this text amendment, and we didn't have any objections to this. And this is really, again, similar to the last two ordinances that we brought forward is just to help set standards and help beautify the community. It wouldn't be something that would apply to existing drive-throughs. They wouldn't have to change. They wouldn't have to reconstruct their parking lots, or but any incoming businesses would then have to follow this requirement. And I guess to add to that too, for example, we've gotten some complaints about the Dairy Queen And there are people who, when they go through the drive-through, they're basically parked in that neighboring parking lot where the Radio Shack used to be. The owner of that building has been upset that there have been people blocking their drive, and but we don't have any rules that prohibit that because it's actually a private drive right there. So unless we get a call to the police department, then we can't enforce that. So this would, help in the future, just limit situations like that.
Mayor.
Alderman Ross?
So Director, this is going to, this has helped to prevent them flooding into the streets, no matter what type of drive-through you have.
Yes.
I hate to say it, Culver's has got they're pretty busy sometime, and they're in the street. Or any, just say any drive-through.
Yes, yeah, that's correct.
Thank you.
Alderman Parker?
Yes. I got a picture here of how are this business owners supposed to control that? On a drive-through, they're in there taking orders, and if they get 30 cars in their drive-through or 5, how are they supposed to control that?
It's really the way that in moving forward, if there are any new businesses that come in that have drive-throughs, it's the way that they construct their lot. So they would just have to make sure that they have those bypass lanes to let people go around, and that they set stacking requirements. I've seen some businesses have parking spaces set up, so if you're waiting, then you park before you go back in line. So it's really the way that they construct that space. And I think this past year we've seen an increase in people going through drive-throughs because restaurants have been closed. So it's maybe been a little bit crazier this past year than in previous years. But I think moving forward, I think a lot of organizations see that and are building their properties to standards. And we did look at other communities to build this, to create these standards, and so we didn't do it from scratch. We looked at what other communities are already doing, and that they've had it in place for a while.
Follow-up?
Sure.
So just to verify, the present businesses we have today do not have to change?
Nope.
Even after adjusting?
No, they don't.
Thank you.
Alderman Monroe?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Mayor. I think one of the big, and Director Hines, thanks for pointing it out. I think COVID's been one of the biggest problems. The rules that we've put down as a city and the state, and what we've done nationally to fight that's caused a lot of our problems. I noticed both McDonald's are, they're trying to do what they can. They're trying to work through as fast. Culver's is another one. Dairy Queen. I've seen all the lines. So, I think there is a bigger push to the drive-through than what we've seen in recent years. So, I applaud that we're not going to try to apply this to existing businesses and changes, because I've actually thought about what could you do to Culver's. The easiest way would be you go in over by Wendy's, wrap around that way, and then just the out traffic comes out on that road. You talk about one-way streets curing a lot of your problems and make traffic a little bit better. But that's a pretty dangerous spot in the city, to be honest, driving. I think this makes a lot of sense.
Mayor.
Alderman Shadle?
Director, have you looked at this to see if Culver's was just now constructing their drive-through, or the Dairy Queen? Would that change anything, or are they compliant as they stand?
I think in those situations it might change something if it was a new business coming into that space. One example is it's either the Taco Bell or the Burger King or both. They don't have bypass lanes, so our attorney Cox, he said that he was going into one of those businesses to get a pop and was stuck there for 20 minutes because he couldn't leave and get out of there. So they wouldn't be in compliance right now if they were planning to do that at that space. But now I do think places are more cognizant of the fact that there are more standards set for these types of businesses and more rules that they have to follow when they are building.
Madam Mayor,
Alderman Busker?
make a motion, move this forward.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion made by Alderman Busker, seconded by Alderman Monroe to move ordinance 2021-42 on to the next regularly scheduled meeting. Is there any further discussion on this, council? Then we move on to item number 14, which is the first reading of ordinance 2021-43. Could you please read this?
Ordinance adopting 2017 National Electric Code, NEC, Section 1424.01 of the codified ordinances.
Director Hines.
The City of Freeport adopted the 2011 National Electric Code as the electric code of the city for the purpose of prescribing regulations governing the installation, construction, alteration, repair, and maintenance of electrical systems and equipment, save and except for anything that would be amended or repealed within the chapter. So the National Electric Code is revised and expanded every 3 years. Since 2011, there have been 3 updates, including 2014, 17, and 2020. We're proposing that we adopt the 2017 NEC. So we included a summary of changes. It was all the packets were pretty large, but it was from 2011 to 2014, and then 2014 to 17. From 2014 to 2017, changes really included editorial clarification, expanding some requirements, adding some new requirements, deleting things, and relocating requirements. So a lot of it really was just minor revision, modernizing, cleaning it up, getting rid of things that didn't make sense anymore. There were 9 new articles proposed and 5 new articles were added within the 2017 NEC. So just for some examples, there were additional solar requirements added, and that really aligns with our Soul Smart goals. And there were additional outlet requirements for kitchens as appliance uses change, and where there are outlets are required in meeting rooms now. There are separate circuits are required for garages. This would all apply to new construction or complete reconstruction. So we did bring this to the Building Commission, and they voted unanimously to recommend approval of this revision from 2011 to 2017. During that discussion, they had absolutely no issues with it, and the electrician that's on the commission was the one who ultimately said at this point, electricians really follow this code anyways, and so he was completely in favor of moving forward with this. So we would recommend approval of the adoption of the 2017 NEC.
Director Hines, if there was an update in 2020, is there a reason that we're not going to the 2020 instead of the 2017?
Mainly just because it's such a big jump from 2011 to 2020, so we thought we would just at this point go to 2017. Our building our building inspector has better knowledge than I do about this, I'll be honest, and so there might have been something in there that didn't make sense for our community, but I can get that from him and bring it back to our next meeting.
Mayor Miller.
Alderman Shadle.
There's very seldom that the current code is ever in effect in any municipality. They're always running at least one code cycle behind, so that the contractors have a chance to get up to date with what they're gonna have to do when they go to build a house and how they bid it and what's coming. So as the 2023 code change is gonna come, there may be a few that adopt right that year, the 2020, but it's going to be at least one code cycle, if not 2 code cycles behind, pretty much unanimously across everyone.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Mayor,
Alderman Busker.
make a motion to move this forward.
We have a motion made by Alderman Busker, seconded by Alderman Ross to move ordinance 2021-43 on to the next regularly scheduled meeting. Unless there's something further that council would like to discuss. We will move on to item number 15, which is the adoption of resolution 2021-50.
Resolution prioritizing projects to be funded by the use of American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA funding.
Thank you. Manager Bucus.
Thank you, Your Honor. As council is aware, the American Rescue Plan Act was adopted earlier this year, and money was set aside for local governments, which we have applied for through resolution number R 2021-34. We have received our first payment. at the last meeting when we were discussing, when I presented the different projects to council. Council had desired that we basically, that staff would prioritize the use of these funds. And so resolution 2021-50 sets the priorities that staff sees for the use of the American Rescue Plan Act monies.
So Manager Bucus, this is a list of priorities that, let's just say that Congress passes something in the near future that would allow some of this money to be spent on road improvements. This would allow the council to be able to revisit this and reprioritize if we needed to?
Yes, council can always rescind this resolution in the future and reprioritize if something new comes up. And as you mentioned, Mayor, there was some discussion about a month ago or so that Congress was going to try to amend or pass some kind of statute to allow some of this money to be used for road improvements. That has not occurred yet, but through, I know what the President said that his intention was to allow for police technology, and that's now in the preliminary final draft regulations that's being published right now. And that's why we originally, when we were looking at the use of these funds, we were just looking at water and sewer projects, and now we've expanded that to include some technology improvements for the police department.
Discussion, council. Everybody's good with this, Alderman Burberry?
I would make a motion, we approve resolution 2021-50.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor made by Alderman Burberry, seconded by Alderman Busker to approve resolution 2021-50. Any further discussion, council? Madam Clerk, please.
Madam
take
Mayor?
the- Yes.
So just a question. I appreciate Manager Bucus the opportunity to look at the expenses here. Now, obviously, if there are changes in what is allowable, I imagine this still would be coming back to council. So this is a general guide on where the finances would go, correct?
Yes. I'm sorry, Madam Mayor. Yeah, thank you. Yes, this is a general guideline that staff would be following, and we'd be setting up whatever engineering drawings that we may need. That'd all be coming back to council for approval before we do anything. And if something should change as far as how it can be used, we'd be presenting that to council as well to see whether council has any desire to make the change. You know, we've been getting a lot of, I don't say pressure, but we've gotten quite a few phone calls from some service organizations that feel that, their congressmen or our congresswoman, I should say, and some other people have told them that, you can use this for human resources purposes. The city does not provide any human resource services, so, I mean, this kind of sets a tone that we could tell people this is how we're using our money, and try to keep some of the phone calls and telling people, no, because basically that's what we're doing. We're telling them no.
Thank you, Manager Bucus. I appreciate having the roadmap on where these expenses can go. So appreciate your time to assemble that.
If there's no further discussion, Madam Clerk, would you please take the roll?
Shadle?
Aye.
Mysick?
Aye.
Burberry?
Aye.
Borneman?
Aye.
Monroe?
Aye.
Russ?
Aye.
Parker?
Aye.
And Busker.
Aye.
The resolution is adopted 8-0.
Thank you. Item number 16 is the adoption of Resolution 2021-41. Could you please read this?
Resolution approving purchase of a lift station pump and variable frequency drives for Lynn Street.
Thank you. Director Boyer?
Thank you, Your Honor. The city has approximately 7 lift stations all over town. Lift stations convey wastewater from low areas to higher areas where they can gravity feed to the wastewater treatment plant. The Lynn lift station is one of those important lift stations. Right now, the VFDs and one of the pumps is 20 years old and has exceeded its design life, requiring replacement. Staff received quotes for the new lift pump from Mississippi Valley Pump Incorporated and Crescent Electric for the new VFDs. Funding for this proposal is through the American Rescue Plan Act. The total amount of the purchase is $81,840.51, the pump being $66,635, and the VFDs being $15,205.51. Staff requests that council approve Resolution 2021-41, enabling us to purchase the pump and VFDs.
Director Boyer, I just have a question. If we look back on the previous one, it refers to the Lynn Street lift station pump, force main, and electrical controls. There's still another $600,000 in that particular line. Is that for the remainder of what that plan is for the force main and the controls?
So the pump and the controls are one aspect, and the other aspect is the force main that needs to be replaced. Approximately 3,000 feet of, I believe we're going to have 18-inch main. So that'll come at a later time after we get a chance to do the engineering. And this work will be done in-house, by the way.
Madam Mayor,
Alderman Busker?
motion to adopt resolution 2021-41.
Second it.
We have a motion made by Alderman Busker, seconded by Alderman Rowe. Is there any further discussion, council? Madam Clerk, would you please take the roll?
Shadle?
Aye.
Mysick?
Aye.
Berbere?
Aye.
Borneman?
Aye.
Monroe?
Aye.
Ross?
Aye.
Parker?
Aye.
And Busker.
Aye.
The resolution is adopted 8-0.
Thank you. Item number 17 is the adoption of Resolution 2021-46. Could you please read this?
Resolution authorizing and approving an agreement with GovHR to provide recruitment services related to the city's Director of Community and Economic Development position.
Thank you. Manager Bucus?
Thank you, Your Honor. With the resignation of the Community and Economic Development Director / Assistant to the City Manager, I'd like to use an executive recruiter with help with our search for her replacement. The city has used GovHR in the past on quite a few occasions for some of our employees, and they have a proven track record with us. I'd like to do a minimum scope of recruitment with them, and that will cost the city $19,500. And therefore, I'm recommending that council approve the resolution number 2021-46, authorizing staff to enter into a contract with GovHR for the recruitment of a Community and Economic Development Director.
Manager
Shadle?
Bucus.
I'm all ears.
Mayor. I guess, sorry. Madam Mayor is what I should have said.
Sure, go ahead, Alderman
We've
Borneman.
used this company, GovHR, many times in the past. Is there a benefit to using a search firm who's familiar with us than going elsewhere?
Is that to you or to me? Well, that's one thing. They're familiar with us. They're from Illinois. I looked at some other firms, and especially when we were looking at the recruitment for a new city manager, and the fees were basically within the same range, so I did not really contact anybody out of state. They are familiar, again, with the city, and at the time I was originally talking to GovHR, they were recruiting for a couple other community development directors as well. So, you know, they've got the staff, they've got the expertise and the resources to go out and do a recruit for us. And this is a very important position that we need to fill.
Manager Bucus, are you keeping the title part of that of Assistant to the City Manager on that list of responsibilities?
No, the assistant to the city manager was a separate position that we had that was eliminated during the COVID crisis when we were combining positions as people were leaving.
Okay, thank you. Manager Shadle, I'm sorry, Manager, Alderman Shadle.
Manager Bucus, we've got some funding that we can move around to cover this fee then?
Well, it's not going to happen overnight, and so part of the salary that would be going to the community development director would be used for this recruitment.
During the absence.
Right.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor.
Alderman Busker?
Alderman Berber had
Alderman
his hand up
Burberry?
first.
Manager Bucus, what's included in limited scope? Are they going to tell us, they're going to recommend X number of people whom we are then going to interview? Or are they going to come up with a final candidate for us to approve, or what?
I didn't bring my folder with me. They're going to present at least 20 candidates. They'll rank them.
Oh, okay.
And they'll do some preliminary interviews with them. I did not ask them to do the final interviews and recommendation because we haven't done that in the past. Basically, we've done that in-house. But they'll contact former employers and do a limited background search. We'll still do the full credit and criminal background, but they'll do the employment background search for us.
Thank you, that's good.
Madam Mayor.
Manager Bucus, did you give them a time frame?
I have not, since we haven't really sat down and discussed it. That's one thing I'll be doing probably tomorrow.
So what do you think is reasonable? I mean, I don't want to have something happen so quick that we make a bad decision on this, but I understand, this is a spot that we don't want to leave open either, so.
Right. Well, I figure at least a minimum of 45 days to advertise because it's going to take a while to get it out. They have their network of where they send the notices to and how they advertise. Plus, they'll do their own recruitment for people that they've interviewed in the past that they think might fit our position. So you're looking at least a minimum of 45, maybe 60 days for them to do that. I'm trying to think. Then they got the backgrounds that they'll be doing. So, we're looking 4 or 5 months, at least 4 months, I would say, before we have our finalists to interview.
Alderman Ross?
Yes, Manager Bucus, this might be a little far-fetched too, but who would fill in?
Me.
Fill that time?
Me.
Oh, there you go.
I did last time when we had a vacancy. I did time before that.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Mm-hmm. So to kind of follow up with Alderman Ross's comment, I want to get this done quickly, but I want it done efficiently and get the best can like we did in the past. And that's how we've done with all our department heads. And I'm proud of all our department heads because we have gone through this process.
Madam Mayor.
Alderman Busker?
Motion to adopt.
Second.
We have a motion made by Alderman Busker, seconded by Alderman Shadle to adopt Resolution 2021-46. There's no further discussion. Madam Clerk, would you please take the roll?
Shadle.
Aye.
Mysick.
Aye.
Berberay.
Aye.
Borneman.
Aye.
Monroe.
Aye.
Ross.
Aye.
Parker.
Aye.
And Busker.
Aye.
This resolution is adopted 8-0.
Thank you. Item number 18 is the adoption of Resolution 2021-47. Could you please read this for the record?
Resolution authorizing and approving an addendum to the Fixed-Based Operator, or FBO, lease and airport management agreement with Angie Jansen doing business as Freeport Flight Center at Albertus Airport.
Thank you. Manager Bucus.
Thank you, Your Honor. The fixed-base operator, or also known as the FBO agreement, expired on August 18th of 2021. I'm proposing a short-term extension to the current FBO contract with Angie Jansen, doing business as Freeport Flight Center. She's agreed to the extension. Of course, the extension has already started because of the time frame that the council meetings have been meeting. But this extension is through October 1st of 2021. We are in the process right now, and at the September 20th City Council meeting, we'll have a proposal to council to approve a new contract that will be for 4 years. And it's my recommendation that council approve. It's my recommendation that council approve the extension to October 1st of 2021.
Alderman Parker?
Make a motion to move that forward.
Second.
We have a motion made by Alderman Parker, seconded by Alderman Ross. Is there any further discussion? Madam Clerk, would you please take the roll on the adoption of Resolution 2021-47?
Shadle.
Aye.
Misick. Alderperson, thank you. Berberet.
Aye.
Borneman.
Aye.
Monroe.
Aye.
Ross.
Aye.
Parker.
Aye.
And Busker.
Aye.
The resolution is adopted 8-0.
Thank you. Item number 19 is the adoption of Resolution 2021-48. Could you please read this?
Resolution to approve the use of 2021 ComEd Green Region Program funds.
Thank you. Director Hines.
Thank you. So the Greater Freeport Partnership, on behalf of the city, applied for the 2021 ComEd Green Regions Grant Program for a downtown pocket park to be built at 11 and 15 West Stevenson Street, where the Abet and Waves buildings were just demolished. So this will be, or the city was awarded $10,000 to go towards this pocket park from this grant program. The pocket park concept includes filling the vacant spaces on West Stevenson Street with accessible public seating and open green space for residents and visitors to use. In order to accept the grant, we must provide a resolution approved by the Freeport City Council approving the use of the $10,000 for the downtown pocket park. The city and the Greater Freeport Partnership are both matching $2,000 for a total of $4,000 in additional funds. And the Greater Freeport Partnership has also secured $2,500 in grant funds from the Community Foundation of Northern Illinois and over $2,600 from the Northern Illinois Association of Realtors Placemaking Grant. The city requested additional funds from the state, and we're currently waiting to hear on the status of that application. So we would recommend approval of this resolution to accept the $10,000 so that we can provide that resolution to the ComEd Green Regions program to move forward with that.
Madam Mayor.
Alderman Parker.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion made by Alderman Parker, seconded by Alderman Busker to adopt Resolution 2021-48. Is there any other discussion, council? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, could you please take the roll?
Shadle.
Aye.
Misick.
I don't see him on here anymore.
He will be noted as leaving the meeting. He was just a moment ago, like about 5 minutes. Berberet.
Aye.
Borneman.
Aye.
Monroe.
Aye.
Ross.
Aye.
Parker.
Aye.
And Busker.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
Would you want to just call Alderman Misick again, just to make sure he wasn't able to hear you?
He's not displaying on the monitor.
Yeah, Kurt?
Alderperson Misick, can you hear us?
There he is.
Sorry, I lost my connection. Did I miss anything?
You did. Alderperson Parker made a motion to adopt Resolution R 2021-48, seconded by Alderperson Busker. Are you in favor? Did you miss more than that?
I think that's all I had. Thank you.
We're looking for your vote, in favor or against.
I am in favor, thank you.
Thank you. And the resolution is adopted 8-0.
Thank you. Item number 20 is the adoption of Resolution 2021-49. Could you please read this?
Resolution authorizing and approving a proposal for roofing services from Freeport Industrial Roofing for replacement of City Yard's loader bay roof.
Thank you. Director Boyer.
Thank you, Your Honor. The City of Freeport's Public Works Department has a loader shed in urgent need of repair. The roof on the shed failed some time ago and currently leaks, resulting in slippery conditions for staff and deteriorating the structure. Staff received 3 proposals to complete the necessary roof replacement. Freeport Industrial provided the lowest cost proposal at $18,900. Funding for the loader roof replacement is budgeted in the 2021 budget. Staff requests that council approve the resolution 2021-49 to accept the lowest quote from Freeport Industrial to replace the loader shed roof.
Mayor,
Alderman Ross.
I'd like to go ahead and adopt resolution 2021-49.
Second.
We have a motion made by Alderman Ross, seconded by Alderman Busker. Is there any discussion, council?
Madam Mayor.
Alderman Busker?
Yeah, I'd just like to say that this is a long time overdue. I know Alderman Ross and I, when we first got on the council, walked through that area, and yeah, I'm glad to see this coming forward for repair. Thank you.
I can second that.
If there's no further discussion, Madam Clerk, could you please take the roll?
Shadle.
Aye.
Misick.
Aye.
Berberet.
Aye.
Borneman.
Aye.
Monroe.
Aye.
Ross.
Aye.
Parker.
Aye.
And Busker.
Aye.
And this resolution is adopted 8-0.
And item number 21 is the adoption of Resolution 2021-51. Could you please read this?
Resolution in support of the Bird City, Illinois initiative.
Thank you. Manager Bucus?
Thank you, Your Honor. Your Honor, as you're aware, you and the city staff have been working with the Northern Illinois Audubon Society on naming Freeport a Bird City, Illinois community. We are one of 3 pilot communities in the Illinois that they're looking at designating. Earlier this year, the mayor proclaimed World Migration Bird Day in Freeport. The adoption of this resolution will bring us closer to being the Bird City, Illinois community. The Northern Illinois Audubon Society is doing a lot of work on this on the city's behalf, and a decision on whether we become a Bird City, Illinois probably will not be made until early of 2022. There's no cost to become a Bird City, Illinois community, but one of the benefits is hopefully we'll have bird watchers and others coming to our city to view the various birds that we have that live and call Freeport home. And staff's recommendation that council approve this resolution. And we also need to approve this resolution as part of our application for the Bird City, Illinois designation.
And due to some scheduling conflicts, I've been asked to read a statement on behalf of the Audubon Society. There are many states across the country that have a Bird City recognition program. Bird City, Illinois is a new and developing initiative with a mission to encourage all communities in Illinois to implement sound bird conservation practices by offering public recognition to those that succeed in enhancing the environment for birds and educating the public about the relationship between birds and people and how that contributes to a healthy community. The Northwest Illinois Audubon Society is a part of a pilot group of 3 total organizations in Illinois to determine and test the criteria and application process before the Bird City program is launched statewide in January. There is a minimum of 9 criteria from 6 different categories. The city of Freeport has met 18 criteria. One of the requirements to be recognized as a Bird City is for the municipality to vote on and pass a Bird City resolution, which is presented tonight. The purpose of this resolution is to demonstrate that the municipality supports the goals and actions of protecting birds. Questions, council? Alderman Shadle.
I'd make a motion to adopt.
Second.
We have a motion made by Alderman Shadle, seconded by Alderman Ross, to adopt Resolution 2021-51. If there's no further discussion, Madam Clerk, would you please take the roll?
Shadle,
Aye.
Misick,
Aye.
Berbere,
Aye.
Borneman,
Aye.
Monroe,
Aye.
Ross.
Aye.
Parker.
Aye.
And Busker.
Aye.
The resolution is adopted 8-0.
Thank you. Item number 22 is reports from department heads. Finance?
Nothing this evening, Your Honor.
Thank you. Community development?
Thank you. So since it was brought up tonight, I just wanted to say how thankful I am for the opportunity that I've had to work here for the past 2 years, and how excited I've been for all the projects that we've done here. I still have 5 more meetings, so I'll be here for a little bit longer, but I just wanted to say thank you. And then I also wanted to give an update on the pre-disaster mitigation grant. Last week we accepted the notice of state award through GATA. Right now we're waiting on IEMA's legal team to make the final approval, and then once we get that, we will take that approval or the agreement to council for final approval. And in the meantime, we're working on planning smaller, more intimate group meetings in person with the residents who signed up for the pre-disaster mitigation grant. We're planning a meeting in the next week with several residents who have been very boisterous and involved in making sure that everyone is heard and that their questions are being answered. And so they're going to help with that planning process and making sure that we are communicating as well as we can to get everyone prepared for this very big project.
Thank you. Public Works?
Thank you, Your Honor. Just a couple of things. This last week, I went through the Empire Reconstruct project with Joe Strichter from Fair Graham. I was pretty impressed with the quality of work that was performed. We only came up with 3 fairly minor items to be corrected, and I have no doubt that they'll be corrected in very short order. So I'm here tonight to tell you I believe the Empire project is behind us and it is complete. In addition, Timber Industries has taken possession of their portion of the woodlot. They've installed a barrel grinder and have been currently grinding our tree inventory, the tree cuts and bushy wood yard waste into mulch. So very pleased about that. And the last thing is we're anticipating groundbreaking very shortly on the new Fields of Freeport water treatment plant. And in anticipation of that, we were able to take care of that, get the water tower washed. It has not been washed since it was installed in 2012. So real pleased about that. So that's all I have for tonight, Your Honor.
Thank you. Fire?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just wanted to announce and make sure everybody's aware that we have an open house on September 30th from 6 to 8 p.m. at Central Fire Station on South Walnut. So inviting the community to come out and take a look at the station. We'll have our fire safety house there. We'll have some equipment demonstrations and all of our folks on hand. Also, I'm going to have 2 openings. I received just before the city council meeting a retirement notice for District Chief Kurt Timmer. He'll be retiring October 7th. His last shift will be October 7th. So that will give us 2 openings in the fire department, and we are working on a new hiring process. So if anybody knows of anyone who would be interested in a career in the fire service, let me know. That's all I have this evening.
Thank you. Police?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to report that out of abundance of safety and concern that we're going to put a temporary stop to the neighborhood watch meetings until some of this stuff with the pandemic blows over a little bit. Also, I was just notified this afternoon that one of our Durangos that we ordered earlier this year is in town. It's at the dealership. They're prepping it for delivery, so that should be in the fleet soon. And we also have the truck that we just took delivery of down getting striped right now, so that should be up and running here relatively shortly.
Thank you. Library?
Thank you, Mayor Miller. I just want to send a friendly reminder that the Rise and Shine is going to be at the library on Thursday at 7:30, and you are all welcome to join us. Thank you.
Thank you. IT? All right, thank you. And City Manager?
Thank you, Your Honor. I'd like to announce that Kevin Suter has accepted the position of Communications Director for the city. She'll be starting on October 12th. This was a long process. It took almost 9 months to find the qualified candidate, but I think she'll fit in real well with our team here. Also, we're also looking for auto mechanic, and I believe the library has a couple of clerks positions that they have open. As far as our municipal code, we have our municipal code online, and it's been updated. It was just recently updated through every ordinance that the city council has approved through July 6th of 2021. So that's our most updated code that we have online right now. And that's all I have for tonight, Your Honor. Thank you.
Thank you. I just have a few things to remind you to mark your calendars for. This Saturday is the 100th anniversary celebration of Licki Jewelers. That's this Saturday. The event is actually right in front of their building. They're blocking off the entire block and having a little street party. It is from 10 until 4 this Saturday, and it is an outdoor celebration, and the emphasis is on their German heritage with a German band and dancing. I understand they have quite a few things lined up, so it should be quite an event, and just to celebrate a 100th anniversary is a big deal. And then also next Thursday, we decided to keep our staff on the street scheduled because it is an outdoor event. And so it is actually the last one for this season before the weather turns cold. So that will be Thursday the 16th at 5 p.m. and that will be held at Crape Park in the shelter that's near the band shell. So if you can avail yourself for that, it's actually it has been very successful. Alderman Parker, thank you for showing up for those, making time on that. It's been very successful in building that relationship with our constituents. And then also lots of planning that's been in the works for quite some time before the council. Just a reminder that next Saturday, the 18th, is the Northwest Illinois Air Show that starts at 1:30. The gates open at 10:30. The parking is at the fairgrounds only, and there is a free shuttle that is taking place from the fairgrounds out to the airport. And my understanding is they have 8 food trucks that will be participating and over 10 food vendors that will be there. It's $15 at the gate, and please remember to bring your lawn chairs and your blankets if you'd like to have a little more of an enjoyable show to watch. So just a few reminders of some great things happening within the city. So we will move on to council announcements. Alderman Shadle.
Nothing tonight.
Thank you. Alderman Misick.
Nothing tonight, thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Berberet.
Nothing tonight, Your Honor.
Thank you. Alderman Borneman.
Nothing, thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Monroe.
Nothing tonight, Mayor.
Thank you. Alderman Ross.
Nothing tonight.
And Alderman Parker.
Follow the rule, nothing tonight.
Okay. All right. Alderman Busker, what are you going to have?
Let's make it unanimous. Nothing tonight.
All right. Thank you very much. Then that will move us on to item number 26, which is public comment. Tommy.
Mayor, Joey, you know about the IVs coming to Kmart?
Can you speak a little bit louder, Tommy?
IV is coming to the Kmart?
Yes, that is true. They have purchased that piece of property.
So are they gonna tear down that Kmart down there?
I'm not sure, Director Hines, if she's able to answer that or not.
They may be tearing it down and rebuilding.
Thank you. You did a good job, Jody, man.
Thank you, Tommy. Are there any other public comments? Then we will move on to item number 27 for executive session. Madam Clerk, could you please read this?
1 and 11, or 11 and 21, correct? Litigation when an action against, affecting, or on behalf of the particular public body has been filed and is pending before a court or administrative tribunal, or when the public body finds that an action is probable or imminent, in which case the basis for the findings shall be recorded and entered into the minutes of the closed meeting. Pursuant to 5 ILCS 122C21, discussion of minutes and meetings lawfully closed under this act, whether for purposes of approval by the body of the minutes or semi-annual review of the minutes as mandated by Section 2.06.
Is there a motion to enter into executive session?
So moved.
We have a motion made by Alderman Busker, seconded by Alderman Ross. Madam Clerk, would you please take the roll?
Shadle?
Aye.
Misick?
Aye.
Berberet?
Aye.
Borneman?
Aye.
Monroe?
Aye.
Russ?
Aye.
Parker?
Aye.
And Busker.
Aye.
Motion passed.